August 1945. Two atomic bombs explode over Japan. Japan surrenders, ending World War II. After two bloody and devastating wars, the people of the world recognized that money could be better spent on progress and peace. 2 months later, on 24th October 1945, the United Nations was born. Coined by President Roosevelt, the United Nations organization had its charter signed by 51 nations. It was signed with the hope of maintaining international peace and security, developing friendly relations among nations, and promoting social progress, better living standards, and human rights. On this day, President Truman expresses the hope of all mankind.
The Charter of the United Nations, which you are now signing, is a solid structure upon which we can build for a better world.
66 years on, with a headquarters in New York, the UN now has 192 members and an expanded role in international affairs. While the organization started out with much hope, the effectiveness of the UN as a global policeman is often called into question. As the years drew on, the UN was paralyzed by actions of the Permanent Five in the Security Council: France, Britain, the United States, China, and the then Soviet Union and now Russia. First in the Cold War, and the later crisis of Rwanda and Bosnia, where some of the greatest genocide campaigns of our time took place.
Here, you may be delegates of your government, but really, do not forget why you are attending these conferences. If all the money spent on war was spent on finding environmental answers, ending poverty, and finding treaties, what a wonderful place this earth would be. My dad always says, you are what you do, not what you say. Well, what you do makes me cry at night.
The failure of the Security Council to resolve the issue of Palestine has been a stumbling block from the very beginning. Any attempt to pass a binding resolution has and continues to be blocked by America's unconditional support for Israeli foreign policy.
Efforts to chip away at Israel's legitimacy will only be met by the unshakable opposition of the United States.
To date, there have been 225 resolutions on this issue, but little has been achieved. As the UN continues to be dominated by states that form its core membership, it is also these states that lead to inaction. In these instances, states are unable to come together to achieve the liberal vision of a cooperative international community that comes together to bring about absolute gains with the assistance of international organizations to foster peace. So, is the UN nothing more than a tool for the powerful and the 21st century Tower of Babel? Despite its initial focus on the state, the UN has evolved to deal with issues beyond its charter by increasing its focus on human security to find issues to problems as diverse as climate change, food security, and human rights. In the year 2000, the UN adopted a global action plan to achieve 8 Millennium Development Goals, including ending poverty and hunger, achieving universal education, and combating HIV/AIDS. 10 years on, the number of people living below poverty has fallen, and 30 million more kids in sub-Saharan Africa have gone to school. While many targets have yet to be met, programs to improve living conditions of the poor, education and basic health have provided an extra push for human security. In addition, Blue Berets have also been relatively successful in carrying out UN peacekeeping missions in Kashmir, Lebanon, East Timor, Congo, Rwanda, and Bosnia, to name a few. These peacekeepers provide security mostly in the aftermath of a conflict to ensure adherence to peace agreements, buy time for diplomatic efforts, and assist the sustenance of a new government. So what is the utility of the UN today? Despite all its failures, the paradox is that since its founding, the UN has prevented the world from going over the brink of war. And even its critics cannot imagine what the world would look like without the UN.